Well, lots happening in the cricket world to discuss on this week's Sky Cricket podcast. We're starting bright and early for reasons that will become apparent in a short while because we've got a guest on from overseas. Nas, good morning. How are you? Cup of strong coffee to keep you awake?
With an hour with you, 2 cups of coffee, definitely this
At
morning. But the
least.
sun is shining over Chelmsford again, so I'm happy, relatively happy.
Well, there's lots to discuss, not least the retirement from Test cricket of one of the greats of the game, Virat Kohli. But England picked their white ball squads as well this week. And that's a fast moving situation with the IPL kicking off again. So interesting decisions to make there. And with the county championship beginning again on Friday, Lancs are looking up at all the other teams from the bottom of Division 2. I was tempted actually just to get Paul Allott on for 20 minutes, and then we could just sit, go and have a cup of coffee and a bowl of cornflakes and listen to him rant about Lancashire at the bottom of Division 2.
Well, I was with Bumble the other day. We did one of those film room episodes, and we did not talk about the game that we were supposed to. All Bumble ranted about was the demise of Lancashire County Cricket Club. And since then, Keaton Jennings has handed
Yeah.
in his resignation as captain. So what is happening with your old county? I mean, this is ahead of the Virat Kohli news, by the way, we're going to talk about. We've got
This is
Lancashire ahead of Kohli.
the big news. Yeah, Keaton Jennings stepping down, Max Harris taking over. Apology from the committee to the members, and I can't remember the last time. Certainly didn't happen when I was there. The committee apologising to the members. We're only 6 or 7 games into the season and barely a month into the season. But of course, with all the good weather we've been having and the way the season is structured, you're essentially halfway through the championship now, aren't you? So you can't afford a slow start, which Lancashire clearly have. They're rooted to the bottom and struggling. So, and Jimmy Anderson, I think, is going to come back. I think he might be due for a return on Friday. So they're putting all their hopes on a 42-year-old knight to drag them out from the
So,
bottom of Division 2.
So Kohli disappearing from red ball cricket and Jimmy coming back to red ball cricket. That great battle that we once had is no more.
Amazing.
What a shame.
Now let's talk about Virat Kohli because I mean, big news really at the start of the week. But you were always a Rohit Sharma fan, really. You never really rated Virat, did you, as a batter or a captain?
That's such a bad way to start that question, isn't it? You could have been so much nicer. I agree with exactly what you said last week, where you obviously had a premonition of what was coming, where you were bigging up Kohli's captaincy. I, like most of the world, have been a massive Virat Kohli fan over the last 14 years or so. What an iconic cricketer. The stats speak for themselves, 123 test matches, averaging 47, but he was so much more, as you know, so much more than statistics. The aura, the swagger, the passion. I mean, we know Indian cricket and we know Indian cricket fans. Cricket means so much to them and they want their cricketer and their captain when he was captain to show them that it means a lot. And no one embodied that passion and for cricket in India more than Kohli. Unbelievable player.
The Test cricket as well. Obviously, it's Test cricket that he's retiring from, and a bit like Rohit, he'll continue to play ODI cricket, having stepped away from the T20 side after that win in the Caribbean. But it was noticeable to me that in his retirement statement, he kind of referenced the challenges that Test cricket have given him and brought over the years. I mean, he didn't pay lip service. You hear a lot of people from administrators downwards saying Test cricket is the pinnacle of the game and it's the most important thing, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people pay lip service to it because they don't back up words with actions. But from what I saw, and I loved watching Virat Kohli play every day of his 123 Test career, he put his heart and soul into Test cricket. And you know what it's like. We've all been there. There are painful days in Test cricket, long days. You're in the field. You don't look like getting a wicket. It's hot. But that energy and passion for it never seemed to dim. And his retirement statement, what did he say? Test cricket tested me, it shaped me and taught me lessons that I'll carry for life. And I think all of us who've played the game can recognize where he's coming from in that regard.
And doubly tough, if you'd like, for someone like Virat Kohli or an Indian cricketer or legend, an iconic person in India, because for us, we can get away from it. You can go off fishing. I can hide away here in Chelmsford. For someone like Virat Kohli and some of their legends, They can't get away from the media scrutiny, attention, their home life, their personal life. Everything is under that. They're in that goldfish bowl all the time. So not only are they tested in test match cricket for 123 tests, I think part of this decision, there were rumors in India that he was saying, I've had enough. I think it's also that mental, how often can you go to the well? And that will never go. When you're Kohli or Tendulkar or Gavaskar or Rohit Sharma or whoever, that attention will always be there. But it's a combination of that attention and the expectation that every time you're on that field, you have to average the best part of 15. You have to win games for India. So it's a combination that I loved his captaincy. You touched on it last week. I mean, he took India to #1 in the world. They stayed there for something like 42 months. He completely changed the way they played cricket. They're fast bowlers. And that was a little bit to do with Kohli as well. The attention to fitness. They became a fit, strong side, which transferred into that seam bowling attack that could bowl long spells. His legacy for Indian cricket is unbelievable. He sort of Ganguly made him feisty and in your face, but I think Kohli made him that force that transformed him home and away.
You mentioned the fitness and the attention to that side of things, which was a departure. Obviously, the game it coincided with a time, T20, which has made the game more dynamic and more athletic. But Kohli was very much a part of that and drove that. Do you think that was partly, in the last 5 years, his batting form has dropped off a little bit, hasn't it? Well, not more than a little bit. He's averaged, I think, 30 or so with 300s in the last 5 years. So that average has kind of test average dipped from 50 to 46 or thereabouts. Do you think that was might be a consequence of many things, time of life, family, post-captaincy, blah, blah, blah. But do you think also it's a consequence of the amount of energy and that he put into those early years? I mean, he was a ferocious trainer in the gym. Occasionally might go into a hotel gym and you watch these guys and it's incredible the kind of energy and commitment that he in particular put into that side of things. But do you think down the line there's always going to be a slight knock-on effect of that, in that you cannot play for almost 20 years as he did at that kind of pace without there being some drop-off eventually?
Yeah, and especially if you're a great of the game. I remember speaking to Kumar Sangakkara. When you're me or you, Ath, and your stats are dropping from 39 to 37 or whatever, it's like, okay. But when you're a great of the game and your stats are dropping from 55 to 50 to below 50, Kumar always said, I wanted to keep my standards high. And that may be a part of the decision that Virat doesn't want to be a normal cricketer, just doing a little bit here and there. And what you say, the combination of everything and the fitness and the drive and the hunger and that passion, he can't go on the field and not be 100%. He can't ever, Virat Kohli can never step on a field and go, I'll just do my best today. Why do you think he's so good in run chases? He is the ultimate winner. He sees the end goal of a win and he is desperate for that win. Everything for Kohli is about winning. But I've always said it about Indian cricketers. They get incredibly well paid. But my admiration for the way they cope and manage their time on and off the field, combined with all the lucrative deals that Kohli has to do. So a day off for me and you is a day off. For him, he may choose, he gets well paid for it, but he'll go off and do a sponsors thing. Then he'll be hitting the gym. Then he'll be playing. Then he'll be hitting the gym. Then he'll be doing a sponsors thing. Then he'll go out for dinner and be bombarded by everyone, or is with his family. I think in the end, that takes a toll. And in fact, it gives me even more admiration for some of the greats like Sachin or someone, Tendulkar, who kept going longer, Rahul Dravid or whatever, that kept going, and managed to cope with everything about being an Indian cricketer. Fantastic career. The passion, we will miss him. It was
You
absolute
mentioned
shame.
you mentioned Sachin there. It's quite a contrast, isn't it, when you think of those two cricketers? If I think of watching them in the field, for example, not so much batting, but Sachin could be anonymous in the field, couldn't he? He could drift away to fine leg or mid-on or whatever. You almost couldn't take your eyes off Virat Kohli, and that's what I always felt watching him. I really, ahead of a day's Test cricket in which Virat Kohli was playing, I really look forward to it. An extra bit of drama or theatre that he would bring to the occasion. So one of my favourite cricketers to watch over the last 15 years or so. And what about India now? Because the retirement of Ravichandran Ashwin, who we talked to in December, retirement of Rohit, obviously, which we mentioned last week, Virat now. It just feels as though at the start of a new World Test Championship cycle, that this is the moment that India will start to regenerate and reshape their team. Well, they'll have to.
Yeah, I mean, 3 massive names there, that have been taken out of their squad, or have taken themselves out of that squad. One thing we know about Indian cricket, as we've seen every time we go there or every time we put on our telly or do a tournament, the depth to their cricket is enormous and huge, and there will be players that come through, and that's one thing about great cricketers. You know, we would have been having, if we were doing this podcast back then, would have been having the same conversation about Tendulkar, and Kohli comes along. So who knows, you know, Gill or Jaiswal or whatever will pick up the baton and take it on. But you'd be very surprised if there's another
Who do you think is
Kohli.
going to bat for? Do you think Shubman Gill? We talked about a captaincy last week. We're not sure where they're going to go yet. I was kind of pitying the person who has to take up that mantle of number 4, because you just had 15 years of Kohli there or thereabouts, and before that it was Sachin. You're gonna Whoever takes on that mantle has got something to live up to.
Yeah, it may be KL, although KL Rahul did well at the top of the order, didn't he, on that
Yeah, I was
tour?
thinking they might open with him and
Yeah.
Jaiswal and
Yeah.
Shubman. If he's going to captain, it might be easier to captain from that
Captain
position.
for, yeah. It'll be interesting. I mean, Karun Nair, who we saw all those years ago in Chennai, get that 100. He's been fantastic in domestic cricket of late, so it could be him. Shreyas Iyer, who's been really good in all formats, although he hasn't played much tests recently, but you know, he could come in. You're right, though. It's a set of very big boots to fill. The other thing, obviously, is their seam bowling attack. There's a few rumours about Mohammad Shami. I think that's where actually the key is going to be. Is you know, they've obviously got Siraj Bumrah is coming back from injury, but the rumours are Shami isn't quite progressing how they would like. He's only 50-50 with his comeback, so they need him to be fit. Although it is a while away, but if they get those 3 seamers fit, then they will take wickets and will have a balanced bowling attack.
Well, the other news this week was not so much around Test cricket, but England's white ball teams, which were selected for the ODIs and the T20s against West Indies. So that series starts after the 4-day test against Zimbabwe, which is at Trent Bridge and starts on the 22nd. I mean, all kinds of interesting things out of those squads, which we'll touch on. But obviously, with the IPL starting up again, and now the IPL final scheduled for June the 3rd, with the knockout stages just before that, that is going to now clash with the ODI series. So, I mean, looking at what happened yesterday, although things may change, who knows what will happen eventually, but it looks as though England have asked their players to return for
They've
that
been
ODI.
listening, haven't they? They've been listening to the Sky
Well,
Cricket podcast. Your rant last week about Bethel, where you just went off like a Bob Willis long run. It's an absolute disgrace that Bethel's on the IPL and not playing in a test match against Zimbabwe. Next thing I hear is England aren't letting their players go back for the end at the knockout
well, they are.
stage.
I think. I mean, Bethel and Butler have gone back or are going back, travelling today or whenever. But they may not be allowed to stay for the end stages. We'll see. If that is the case, I applaud the ECB for that stance, for showing some backbone, because the English season matters, sponsors matter, the television broadcasts matter. Most importantly, the supporters paying ticket prices for those ODIs against West Indies, they matter, and they deserve to see the best England team playing. And as I mentioned last week, if these players are under a national contract and are employees of the ECB, I don't think it should be left to the players to make that decision. The ECB should tell them to come back and play. I hope that will be the case. And if so, I applaud it.
And what do you make of the squads? I mean, the headline there, I guess, no Liam Livingstone in either of the squads. He's been playing in and out of the 50 over stuff, but he has been. He was in the Champions Trophy, but he's not in either. Anything else catch your eye?
No Phil Salt in the ODIs. after he played in the Champions Trophy. I made a few notes down. No Sam Curran, of course. Liam Dawson back for the T20s. Tom Hartley back for ODIs. Tom Banton, Will Jacks in both. So a good day for them. I think effectively what they've tried to do is pick their strongest, what they perceive to be their strongest sides now, because obviously there's a new captain, Harry Brook, who's taking over. And I think one of the regrets of the last couple of years, partly because of scheduling and almost impossible to put your best sides out onto the park all the time because of the overlap of test matches and ODI series. But one of the regrets around Josh Butler's captaincy for somebody like Rob Key would have been that they weren't always able to give him the strongest side as they look to try and regenerate the test team after a difficult few years in test cricket. And now with Harry Brook, new captain, they want to give him a strongest side. So people like Root are in there, multi-format players are in there. And you know, if you're a new captain, the time when you have most authority is right at the start, isn't it? You know that you come in, everybody has the goodwill towards you. You've got a bit of authority. You want to make decisions, and that is the time to kind of get off onto a good start. Because if you start badly, it's very hard to drag it back. So that's another reason why I'd applaud bringing, you know, the best players back, or somebody like Butler back, or Bethel back from IPL, because you want to give Harry Brook the strongest start possible as a new captain.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a captain, you're trying to impose yourself on that team, and what you say and how you carry yourself, people watch and look and learn. And so what you don't want to be doing is doing that with the side, and then some of your big guns come in 3 games later and you're leaving people out. You want all your best players right at the start of your captaincy career. This is how I'm going to do things. He's not a man of, you know, Churchillian speeches, I don't think, Harry Brook, but there'll be a body language and an aura, and the relationship with McCullum, and the team will see that. And you want your main squad, your best players there, seeing the start of this journey. And then down the line, you can mix and match a little bit. So absolutely, it's a game for England, and your rant you've just
So
given
having
again now.
disagreed with me last week about Bethel, you now agree with me, do you?
No, didn't disagree at all. No one can tell me that playing for England is not the absolute pinnacle, and everything else should come underneath that. So absolutely right. Some of these lads have been well rested as well, that they should be there to start the Brook McCullum era. The other thing is England need to qualify for the next World Cup. They're sitting 8th in the table at the moment, so there's a qualification as well. They need to start winning. So it's absolutely the right thing to do, and we wish him well. There's also a T20 World Cup, and it was noticeable. Rob Key, when he came on with us a few weeks ago, mentioned left arm spin. I was like, he's talking about a specific type. So the
Yeah.
likes of Dawson has come in. He said the playing and bowling of left arm spin, and obviously quite a few spinners in that T20 squad, with that World Cup being in India and Sri Lanka. So they've got one eye on that next major event, which is the T20 World Cup.
Now, the reason we're podding so early, it's 7:30 in the morning here, UK time, is that one of our guests is joining us from overseas, Alistair Campbell, former Zimbabwe captain, because that's really England's first international of the year, a 4-day test match against Zimbabwe. We haven't hosted Zimbabwe for 22 years. 2003, you have to go back to the dog days of your captaincy, Nas.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Anderson's debut at Lords. You played, if you remember, Lords and Chester Street, a 2-match series against Zimbabwe in 2003. And that was the last time we hosted Zimbabwe. I was going to ask you a quiz question, actually. Can you remember your team from the last time we played Zimbabwe in a test match in 2003?
I can't remember yesterday, mate. My team from me, Jimmy Anderson, 9
Yes.
others.
Come on. You
No,
must
I
have a
don't know.
chance.
You could give me a bit of a warning. You could
Well,
give me
no,
a
because if I give you a warning, you're going to look it up.
I'm going to look it up now, actually. I have no idea. Come on, read out that team.
Well,
All I can remember.
there's a couple of interesting names, but come on, you must
No, I
remember who
can't. Go on.
opened.
No, go on. Go on, read the team out. I have absolutely no, but I don't want to upset someone now by naming them, and I just axed them.
Trescothick, Vaughan,
Yeah.
Butcher, Hussain, captain, Rob Key at 5, Rob Key at 5.
I would have never mentioned him. I'd have upset him straight away.
Alec, keeper, batter at 6. I'm gonna leave out number 7 because it's a quiz question for you. Ashley Giles,
Yeah,
back in the side.
yeah.
Richard Johnson, who took wickets, if you remember, at Chester Street. Steve Harmison and Jimmy Anderson. And then your number 7. Number 7.
I honestly have no idea as to it. You named me a random test from 23 years ago. Number 7 would have been an all-rounder. I don't know, Ronnie Irani. I don't know who played at 7.
Anthony McGrath.
Anthony McGrath.
Yorkshire coach.
Batting at
Didn't play
7.
that much. Yeah, that's a name I would not have picked out from that.
That side finished off Zimbabwe, touring England for 23
That
years.
was
They never came back.
You've had an interesting kind of relationship with Zimbabwe because all those negotiations in Cape Town that drove you to the brink
No.
happened shortly afterwards.
As of you, but the tied test in Bulawayo, were you captain?
Yeah.
Yeah. And was
Drawn
Alistair
test.
drawn
Yeah, I
test?
think it was. I'll have to ask him.
Yeah.
It was a drawn test, not tied, if you remember.
Right. Okay.
Those are all our yesterdays, 2003, the last time that England played Zimbabwe in Test cricket in England. But they're back here for a 4-day test at Trent Bridge. Alistair Campbell, former Zimbabwe captain, will be joining our broadcast for that. So we thought we'd get him on the pod and chat all things Zimbabwe. How are you, first of all? You sat on the farm just outside Harare, are you?
I am, Athers. Good to see you. It's been a while. Nas, good to see you as well. Been a long time. Yeah, on the farm. I'm currently a blueberry farmer. Others, would you believe it? So just checking up on things this morning. Hence, the farm shirt, and managed to scramble in and make it on time.
Is it blueberry season?
It's just started, actually. Yes. So we're just getting everything geared, getting our first exports going. So yeah, it is. It's just starting now.
Atherton, this is not Farmers Weekly, Atherton. This is a cricket chat. We've waited 23 years for Zimbabwe to come back to England, and you're talking about blueberries.
Well, let's start with a quiz question then. One of only 4 father-son combinations to have captained in the history of Test cricket, you and your son being one. Presumably you, Alistair, know the others, do you?
Well, okay, yeah, I did know them. The other guy was it the brand from South Africa? Is that correct?
Well,
Cowdrey?
I'm going on what I asked Benedict, our statistician, to give me. He says there's 4 father-sons combinations.
Oh, father-son. Sorry, yeah, father-son. Okay, so is Cowdrey one?
Correct. Chris and Colin.
Correct. Okay. Pass on the rest.
Well, Benedict tells me the Nawaba Patordi, senior and junior, and then Frank and George Mann. So that's it. 3,
Okay.
And then you and your son Jonathan, who had the bizarre experience of captaining on his debut, didn't he?
Yeah, and you used the word bizarre because it was bizarre. I mean, we got word the sort of couple of days before that he was going to play. So, he asked me, can I give him his cap? So I said, yeah, we'll go down to Bulawayo. It was in Bulawayo. So we arrived there in the morning and, said, well, when's the cap presentation? About half an hour. So, okay, we'll go and grab a coffee. So I went down the road to grab a coffee. And when I came back, I think it was one of the guys, Ben Curran or something in the circle, said, no, he's captaining. I said, what are you talking about? He's captaining. And he said, well, when, I thought that, Craig Irvin, his wife, had a baby. So when I left the ground, I think it was Richard Ngarava was captaining. When I came back, Jonathan was captaining. So, yeah, it was, look, he had some wide eyes in the cap presentation, put it that way.
Sounds like England in the 90s, to be honest.
Now, he's not in the squad, is he, for this touring party? You're flying over tonight, I think, but you've got another son who's playing club cricket in the Midlands, so you'll be able to catch up with him.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, he was. They just concluded a tour to Bangladesh. So Jonathan was on that tour, didn't play. And Raz has come back, not continue in the PSL, so he's going to play the test matches in England. And yeah, we'll see after that. So yeah, he's lost his place there, but a fair replacement, and they wanted their strongest side out, so it's okay. I'm sure it's yeah, he's okay with that. And then yeah, Matthew is started his professional career, played his requisite amount of first-class games to enable him to come and play some club cricket in England. So he's playing for Leek in the Staffordshire League, East Staffs League, I think it is. And yeah, so I'll catch up with him on Saturday. He's got a league game on Saturday, so that should be good.
Fantastic. Well, before we get into the story of Zimbabwe cricket, because obviously we've not really seen Zimbabwean Test cricket here for such a long time, since virtually the end of your Test career or international career in 2003. Just maybe fill us in on what you've been up to between then and your current guise as a blueberry farmer.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've a variety of things. I mean, I tried my hand at administration, you know, in the earlier years. And if you remember, Zimbabwe got suspended from Test match cricket the first time, that is. And I was sort of tasked with providing the road back to get back playing Test match cricket. So I did that, and until 2015, so that was 2011 to 2015. And then after that, did some commentary work, some media work and whatnot, you know, freelancing around the world. And then 2019, this sort of blueberry lark came about. And yeah, we've since then, the last 5 years have been nose to the grindstone, trying to pioneer an industry, because yeah, it's new. There was nothing grown in Zim sort of 5 years ago, so we're up there to be one of the, you know, fastest growing industries insofar as blueberries are concerned worldwide, really. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. But and then try and keep up to date. I mean, the Suns are playing, so I try and watch a lot of it as I can, and stuff like this. If I can get to catch up with old faces, old foes, old mates, then take the opportunity. And yeah, it's great to be coming over there and catching up with you guys again.
I mean, people in England may not remember and realize what a great era that was of Zimbabwe cricket that you played, and what a top side you were. You know, the likes of Davy Houghton, Flower, yourself, Strang, Heath Streak, you know, Edo Brandes, the hat trick man all over us. You know, it was some glory days, weren't they? You must look back very fondly in those times in that Zimbabwe dressing room.
Yeah, definitely. You know what, we're on a group together, and it is a special bond amongst that era, that group. And it's, you know, a sad occasion. The passing of Heath last year brought us even close together. Added a few in there, and you know, all of us, or those that could make it to the funeral and whatnot. And I suppose those sort of events galvanize. Or yeah, bring home the sort of need to keep in touch, and make sure that yeah, we sort of cherish what we had, and you know, try and pass it on. It's been tough in trying to pass it on because of what Zimbabwe cricket went through, and all the politics, and that's well documented. But I see an easing of that now, and hopefully there can be more integration between the past and the present, to make sure that, particularly on tours like this, I mean, you know, nearly all of those guys coming over, you know, would never have played in England before, and or not know what to expect. I mean, yeah, there's lots of social media around now and footage and whatnot, but to know what to expect, and hopefully this is not just a one-off. Hopefully, I think what we had was the ability. I mean, we were playing all year round, touring England, touring Australia, Pakistan, India, where these guys haven't had the luxury of doing that and improving their games by being able to play against the best in the world. And this is a good barometer. We'll soon see what where they see, or where they're at insofar as their standard is concerned.
You mentioned that it's been well documented about Zimbabwe cricket. Of course, lots of people in England wouldn't really know what's happened, because Zimbabwe has been almost off the radar. I mean, the story of Zimbabwe cricket over the last 20 years could fill 1,000 podcasts, but maybe just sketch the broad brush details of almost the rise that Nas referred to in the 90s, the fall, and you know, there were suspensions, financial, administrative, almost collapse, to a point where there seems to be now a little bit more optimism around Zimbabwe cricket.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, I mean, there was those 90s, early 2000s, and then the politics took over. Land reform, just created all the toxicity around the racial barriers, the black and white, and obviously, the mass resignation of all the white players in Zimbabwe cricket, and that sort of era from 2003, 2002 to 2007, 8, hyperinflation. I mean, it was just cricket was a sort of microcosm of what was transpiring in the country, really, and it was just such a difficult time for everybody, all concerned, and sort of just got out of that, banned from Test cricket for the first, that was the first time. Then the next one came. I think it was 2000 and 2017, 2018, maybe a bit when the SRC got involved, the Sports and Recreation Commission, ICC deemed that interference, so they banned for the second time. There was that huge mountain of debt. But that debt was managed. Zimbabwe cricket managed to erase it because of the anomalies of our economy, and because of the hyperinflationary environment, we're able to get out of it, basically, smoke and mirror style. But it happened, and as you say, moving forward now, there seems to be more optimism. I think there's a better development program. There's more people playing than ever before. More club cricket. I just think first class cricket is not strong enough, and I think that has to be strong in order for you to compete on the international stage. That's the masses playing the buy-in. I'm sure you would have seen the crowds in the ICC qualifiers here, and I think maybe some of you guys were commentating then. But I think that when the powers that be came and saw the possibility within Zimbabwe, the buy-in from the masses, that there was there's scope for longevity. There's a new stadium being built in Victoria Falls now. I think the ICC really see Zimbabwe as a destination for future tournaments. And to be honest, on the bowling side, I mean, you talk about the golden era when you talk about Streaky, and we had Branders, but you'll see them now. And Blessing Zarabani is a real talent. Richard Ngarava, I think. When this side fronts up, I think there's the only problem there is that the batsmen are all getting to the end. So it's that sort of replacement program. But I think this is the best bowling side that if you talk about cross generational, I think it's up there. I think Streaky would be the only guy really that gets in there. And then insofar as the batters are concerned, I think Williams, Irvin, Raza, in that middle order, it's pretty tidy and can hold their own. And so I digress, but the bottom line is I think there is some that the future is bright, providing that we can just get that first class cricket to be a little bit stronger, and whether that means more, some foreign coaches in, or some overseas players just to up the standard in the interim to try and bridge that gap between Test cricket and first class cricket and Test match cricket, because I think that gap at the moment is still too wide.
You say optimism and you're looking forward to the future, but you're one that's had some realism as well about Zimbabwe cricket, whereas a lot of people will be saying we should be playing more and more test matches. We should have more weeks like the weeks that coming up at Trent Bridge and in England. Actually, we need to be careful. We don't have that much money. It costs money to put on a test match. How do you see the future of Zimbabwe cricket, especially what's happening now with Pakistan may not play India and ICC events? The money may even get even less filtering down to the likes of Zimbabwe. So how do you see the future for Zimbabwe? What direction should it go in?
Yeah, that's a good question, Nas. And I tell you what, I did an article 3 years ago when I was involved in Zimbabwe cricket. I mean, the cost of hosting Test cricket in Zimbabwe and elsewhere in the world is astronomical. So to expect the guys that are getting the less of the ICC grant and have no meaningful TV rights to sort of substitute that and to make it happen, they're eating into a lot of their budget. And Zimbabwe are playing a lot of test matches this year, but 90% of them at home, because if they weren't hosting, Afghanistan weren't able to host, Ireland won't host. So I think England hosting here has set a precedent. I always think there's got to be someone that's going to be a pace setter or leader and say, guys, if Zimbabwe and Ireland and Afghanistan are going to progress, then we got to play our hand in this. What can we do? So I believe for the first time, England are paying a tour fee to Zimbabwe, and making it worthwhile. And that's why I said I hope it's just not a one-off. But I think the ICC, if they want Test cricket to happen, they need to make sure that they're providing some funding for that, and it doesn't come out of the grant, because that just takes away from the development of the game, doesn't it? So you're piling in all the money to playing, what is Zimbabwe playing this year? Maybe 8 test matches at home. I mean, that's going to cost $3-4 million. And that $3-4 million could probably be better spent in grassroots and development, and as I said, a better first-class system and whatnot. But I don't think that's a big number insofar as the ICC coming in and providing some funding towards that. And I also look at local, Supersport, for instance. You guys would have worked there and worked for Supersport. They've got a wide Africa reach that, the production thereof, maybe they should play a bigger hand in doing that production, not charging for it, and then doing the production and doing a rights for production deal. So at least it doesn't cost anything to get the television, the footage out there, and because that's a big major part of it. I mean, what does a day of television cost? I mean, probably 100 to 250 grand, depending on the technology. But then also now you see the home side like Zimbabwe skimping on all the tech, and then there's a few bad decisions, because there wasn't any DRS and whatnot. So I just think that the ICC, if you can't say this is what we want more cricket being played, and we want the lesser nations having a fair crack, and then doing nothing about it financially, because that's the be all and end all, really, is to provide funding or a fund within ICC to enable these the second tier nations, put it that way, enable them to play more cricket. But having said that, Nas, I just think the bread and butter is white ball cricket for these sides, because the World Cups, we're not really involved in the World Test Championship, but the World Cups, the 20 over World Cup and the 50 over World Cup, that's the bread and butter. So a real focus on that and more bilateral cricket, insofar as that is concerned, I think is the key, because you had a case of Zimbabwe in the last couple of years not qualifying for World Cups, for the white ball World Cups. And that, I don't think, you can play as much test match cricket as you like, but if you're not playing playing in the World Cups, insofar as the white ball stuff is concerned, it's sort of I mean, what are you trying to achieve? I'm not sure. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a paradox. You want to play more cricket, but I think for the lesser nations, the focus should be on white ball competitions and making sure that they're really competitive in those World Cups, because that's where the world sees them, really.
And of course, the next 50 over World Cup, Zimbabwe are a co-host, so you have an automatic qualification for that. So how much, in terms of the kind of general interest in the game, how important will that tournament be? I think you mentioned the development in Vic Falls. Is that partly a consequence of the 27 World Cup coming? And I think, is there a new development in Matari as well? And also, is it still the main centres, Harare and Bulawayo, which were obviously, when we played in Zimbabwe, the main centres that were driving cricket there? Is that still the case?
Yeah, so still Harare. Yeah, so the Vic Falls is a sort of grant money from the ICC. So when you're hosting World Cups, they provide a certain fund to get these things done. So yeah, the Vic Falls ones, it'll be Vic Falls, Bulawayo, Harare. Harare is still the main hub, definitely, and upgrade of the stadiums to put lights in all the stadiums now, increase seating capacity in Harare, because as we've seen, these World Cup events, I mean, Harare Sports Club can only take 10,000, but there's 10,000 people standing outside. So they need to, particularly for these bigger events. Vic Falls, I'm a little bit worried about because of its isolation. So as a tourist destination, I think, if Zimbabwe were playing England there, for instance, they would come in and go on safari, see the Vic Falls, watch the game. I'm worried about the sort of use in the domestic competition, because Vic Falls is an expensive place to go, and to cart teams there and play there and utilize it fully. So I can see that sort of being more a tournament ground than a sort of for domestic use. But the hosting the World Cup, there's huge interest, and as I said, you'll see the crowds. There'll be massive interest, even in if there are neutral games. There's a great there's a great support base, a great fan base insofar as cricket is concerned, and that's one of the things I think that, and I've said it before, that kept ICC interested and not wanting to cut Zimbabwe loose, is that when they did come and see the amount of people in the grounds and the amount of sort of knowledge of the game, it needed to be preserved. They needed to try and pull out all the stops to make sure that it was preserved and had some longevity.
Throwing it back to the test match that we've got coming up, what are the strengths and weaknesses of this Zimbabwe side? I noticed, I think it's 2 of their last 13 test matches they've won. One of them was in Sylhet recently against Bangladesh. Blessing Musramani got 9 in the match. You mentioned the bowling attack, but in general, what do you think the side need to do better to get that win ratio up?
Well, again, they've been in such good positions. So I think not having played Test cricket enough and consistently enough and understanding situations, and that's no matter how experienced you are. Craig Irvin's nearly 40 years of age, but he's only played, I think, 15 Test matches. That's first victory in nearly 10 years, or whatever the case may be. They just haven't played enough Test cricket. So it's totally different, as you guys would know, from a first-class game and just reading the different phases in a game and when to attack, when to defend. Simple things that people take for granted. If you're not playing enough and just when you're getting into it, you don't play for another 6 months or another year, you just tend to forget it. So I think in the last few Test matches against Ireland, I mean they had Ireland 30 for 5 first morning in Bulawayo. Took a marginal first innings lead and couldn't get it done. Against Afghanistan, I think had a 70-80 run lead, lost the Test match. Some poor bowling, some poor sort of poor situation reading, I would say. But they've been in some good positions and just haven't been able to convert. So when you ask me I think that's a frailty that just comes with playing a bit more and understanding a bit more. But I think they've got a well-balanced side. I see them going a little bit defensive in this Test match and playing an extra batter. So the keeper batting at 7, just because it can bowl his off spin, and they've got some decent all-round options in Madaveri and Bennett. So I see them not playing a specialist spinners per se, and then playing the 3 seamers. And as I said, I think Mzarabani's been excellent, and his record speaks for itself. I just don't know in England. I'm sure they're talking about it, but because he's 6'8", I just think he needs to pitch the ball up a little bit more. Particularly in English conditions, not be too short. I believe it's been a cracker of a summer and set fair for the next 10 days as well. So how that plays out, I'm not sure. And then in Garava, left arm option again, got some pace, swings the ball, and Uchi I think will play, and he's on the slower side, mid 120s, but very skillful insofar as nibbling it around is concerned. So in a 4-day game, I don't think there's any need to play that 4th seamer. I think in a 5-day game you might consider it with no spinner, but a 4-day game, I think they might go for the more defensive option. All those bowlers can bowl a few overs. They've got some decent spin option, holding options, and then. On the batting side, as I said, they've moved Bennett up to the top of the order. He likes it there, white ball opener. I think he just has to, consider being a little tighter. He plays all his shots, an exciting player, but I just think got to be a bit tighter early on in England, as we all know. And I'm sure, a few of them were talking to Brendan Taylor before they left, and he was telling them when he first went and played for Notts that cover drives that hit the middle of the bat in Zimbabwe on our pitches, you suddenly getting caught at third slip, and he just went through a patch where he's saying, "Am I rubbish? What am I doing wrong? Am I not moving my feet?" You start asking yourself all these questions, and I think that was a good piece of knowledge. I think just leave well early on. I mean, yep, sort of. Galvanize a technique or understand a technique that you've just got to utilize in England, and when the conditions change from sun to dull and whatnot, and how to just play in different conditions. But I think they've got a lot of experience. Their Curran is come of age in the last year or so, really put some hard work in, and I'm chuffed for him. And he's at the top of the order with Bennett. And then that middle order is the elder statesmen who've played a bit and should add some stability and nous and experience insofar as Williams and Irvin and Raza are concerned. And then a young dasher in the form of Madaveri plays his shots, much in the mould of Tawanda Moyeye, I think, that plays for Kent, that sort of player. So yeah, there's a mixture of youth, experience. I think we've got a good seam attack. So I just hope they don't get overawed and overwhelmed by the occasion. I suppose that's one of the big things that they have to get over. And I don't think it'll be a bad thing if I think if they win the toss, they'll bowl first, and I'm sure England will want to bat. So I think that'll allow them to settle, because the last thing you want to do is first sort of morning at Trent Bridge and be 30 for 5, and it's a big hole to get out of. So I see a more defensive approach, and I think that's the right thing, and just try and take it 4 days and see where they can counterpunch and make sure they counterpunch well when they have the opportunity to do so.
I sense a slight nervousness there in some of those comments that you'll pitch up at Trent Bridge, and understandably, given the lack of experience of English conditions, the relative lack of experience of Test match conditions. You just I sense a slight worry or nervousness that it might all go pear-shaped.
from my side, as I said, you want to be positive, and that's why I'd like to know the messaging from the coaching staff. I think one of the good things that Zimbabwe cricket have done is take Gary Balance on this tour, because
Mhm.
I'm sure he'll be. I mean, he's vastly experienced in English conditions, so I think that's a really good option, and that they can sort of feed off him and whatnot. But I think there would be some trepidation. There's no doubt about that. And it's sometimes people see it as a defensive option if the sun's shining and pitch looks good and you win the toss and decide to bowl first, then and England are 500 for 4 at the end of the first day, or you're batting for half an hour,
Nas
which would
did
probably
that in
happen.
Brisbane in 2003, a similar move.
I remember that, Nas.
Moving over,
I
moving
just
on.
don't know. But maybe if it is, maybe I'm just being a little bit too negative. But my messaging, guys, this is a big test match. Don't be overawed. And what's the best way to settle in? I don't know. Is that defensive, or is that just being smart and trying to get in the game, trying to get it to go 4 days? Is that being too negative? I don't know. I just think for this, you don't want a 2-day game, and that's in the back of your mind, that it's in Zimbabwe have had the experience. When you've got these negative experiences, I think they sort of come to the fore when you're trying to be positive. But for me, it would just be trying to get to 4 days and trying to match England in certain times of the game, and sort of, as I said, counter punch, absorb the pressure when need be. They do score quickly. If it is a good wicket, not be afraid to put out the sweepers, try and gain some control. I know when we played our first test match against India, I mean, we were really negative, and just didn't bowl at the stumps, just bowled 2 foot outside of stumps, hit 7-2 field, frustrated the batsman. I don't know. There's some of those old tactics I don't, that I would try to bring into it and just use that frustration. I think it's a genuine sort of tool in test match cricket. Everyone says attack the stumps and whatnot. Well, yeah, you can use those. The other tactics are also there, I think.
We know that from you, Alistair. Don't
Yeah.
worry about that. We take you back to Bulawayo, mate. Have you two kissed
Yeah.
and made up?
I knew
mean,
you would bring that up.
those 3 wooden things in the middle of the pitch at Bulawayo, and you were bowling 7 yards. That poor old Nick Knight
Yeah.
needed the biggest bat in the world to try and get those. I mean, what tactics! Unbelievable tactics. Bowl wide.
was the
Barmy
ru-
Army was singing bowl wide, and you do all evening that night. What a disgrace.
Yeah, I remember going into the pub there. I just want to ask you, what was the result of the game, Nas?
Nas still thinks it was a tie. He can't get his head round the fact that it was drawn and not tied.
Drawn. Yeah. Well, I remember
Poor old
Bumble. His
Bumble's
day.
never recovered from that day.
Yeah. I've still got it hanging up in my pub there. We flipping murdered him.
On a serious note, though, I go back to that side, and for all the skill and great, very fine, if not great players in that side I mentioned, you were a tough side as well. You had some tough cricketers. Where did that toughness come from? And does this present generation of Zimbabwe cricketers have that as well?
So, where that resilience comes from, I think is sort of when we started out. I mean, we were learning from each other. When you talk about having a blueprint or coaches or a good first class system and coming through, there wasn't any of that. So it was learning on the job and having some tough taskmasters. You guys all know Andy, and he was one of those. Dave Houghton was another one, and saying, guys, if we're going to succeed, there has to be certain things that we do and that are non-negotiable. And I know it's test match cricket, but I go back to our 1-day side. If there was no 45, we'd sweep first ball. And when I'm telling even my sons now, I'm saying, but guys, that's what we used to do. And everyone bought into it. Everyone believed in it. And you knew in a 1-day game that no 45, you would sweep first ball. I mean, schoolboy captaincy, so the captain would never move a guy there, but the spinner would bowl, an arm ball next. You have a bit more pace in it, sweep again, it goes for 4. Then he moves the mid-wicket and get 1. And then you had in your mind that you were 7 off 3 standing at the non-strikers end. And those sort of things, and I talk about that to some of the younger generation, and they don't grasp it. They think that you can, just get in your comfort zone and play how you want to play. I don't think the current guys are being held to a standard that's acceptable to make progress at international cricket. I think there's too much of a comfort zone, and there's nobody there that's sort of driving it, be it from a coaching or senior player perspective, to drive that home to some of the youngsters coming through. And I go back to our first class system. That's where I think that it could be tougher. And I would be trying to get, a good old Aussie pro or a retiring England guy. And I remember when I was involved, I got Chris Silverwood over to come and be, player coach, and Alan Donald and Jason Gillespie. Jason Gillespie was terrific coach for us, and had that sort of softer side of him to nurture guys, but had a real tough side to him as well. And we saw some progress under that. And I think not only will our players learn from that sort of experience, but also our coaches will be able to understand what they need to impart. And I just think they get away with too much. There's just certain standards that are non-negotiable, and certain ways you need to play. But you need enforcers in any organization. You need respected enforcers, put it that way, that players are going, jeepers, if we're going to go to the next level, we better do something about this, and they buy into it and get better. So from our side, that's how we were brought up, is that we taught ourselves. And you know what, resilience comes from getting a few hidings as well, which we did do, but how you bounce back is critical, and I think we did that well in learning and trying to be more competitive. But we played a lot more and played more consistently. There was only 8 nations in those days, so now there's a lot more, and obviously Zimbabwe haven't been playing enough, but the itinerary is picking up. But it's all home games because no one wants the cost of hosting. We've been through that, so you're only getting to learn to play in your conditions, where it would be good to go elsewhere to get to play in other conditions. Obviously, that's how you learn. And the other thing, Nas, and I think it's a point that everybody misses, is not that interaction in the change room after a game. It doesn't happen anymore. And learning, I got so many snippets of good information, learning from going and having a beer in the changing room afterwards, or catching up afterwards, and understanding. And there were the guys that taught us were very happy to impart knowledge and discuss, and learning from that perspective, where I don't see any of our guys doing that at all anymore. So I don't see, if you're not asking better players or better coaches, or trying to learn, if you're not asking and not absorbing and not trying to put into practice what suits you, then I don't know how you progress. You go and watch YouTube or something? I don't know. There's nothing like that sort of personal interaction. I'm just talking from a personal perspective. So yeah, I think these guys have got a little bit more of a softer underbelly than we had. And some of them have got it and are sharp and have got records there. Sean Williams has been excellent for Zimbabwe over the years, but just hasn't played enough. I mean, he's played for nearly 20 years and played 19 Test matches. I think it is. It's crazy number.
Averages 45. So his record's
Yeah,
good.
and if he had played 60, 70 like we did in our era, I mean, he would have been an average 45, 50. I mean, he's one of the top players in world cricket, isn't he? And if he had got 15, 20, 100. So I think there's some guys that haven't had the opportunity because of the Zim stigma, the Zim situation. And hopefully in the twilight of their careers, they can come through and have a little swan song at the end here against England, South Africa, and then the home series against South Africa and New Zealand. So it's quite nice to end your career with 6 Test matches. That's a third of the Test matches you've played in your whole career. It's a crazy stat, that, isn't it?
Yeah, I was looking at the numbers. I think since Zimbabwe last played England in 2003, I think England have played 277 Test matches in that time, and Zimbabwe have played 56 for all the kind of reasons that you mentioned, the long period of suspension. So it's going to be a tough ask for the Zimbabwe team at Trent Bridge next week, but we look forward to seeing you. Safe flight tonight from Harare to the UK. Hope the blueberry picking is good today, if you're getting a final couple of hours in before you fly over, and we look forward to seeing you next week and catching up on commentary.
I hope you like curry, because in Trent Bridge we stay on a road where there's 5 Indian restaurants opposite, and we have a grand slam of naan every night. We have a different curry out every night. So from blueberries to curries, that's going to be the change in diet.
I look forward to it. And just before we go, that 20 years. My last Test match was at Trent Bridge. I mean, that you got 100 there, unbelievably, if you remember. And Nasser, you were playing as well, and so it's gone full circle to come back and commentate. That was my last Test match in England.
Geez, it was a good 100 as well. We were in trouble, I think, at the time.
And we were in trouble second innings, then it rained. But I remember I never batted in that Test match because we were declared overnight, I think, 280 for 4. But I remember Goffey was bowling, and we lost a wicket just towards the end. And he was shouting from the field. I always had my pads, and he's going, "Cambo, get in here, son." And I'm going, "No, I'm not coming." Trying to get the night watchman out the door. So, yeah, some fond memories there of Trent
What
Bridge.
are your best guests, Cambo? Well done.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Safe travels. We'll see you next week.
Good one. Thank you, guys. See you soon. Thanks, Zach.